Hi everybody, this is Michael Hildebrand and I'm your host on the Sleeptrust podcast, where I'm talking about how to gain back trust in your ability to have a superb sleep again.
In this week's episode of the Sleeptrust podcast, we are going to talk about the sleep triathlon. And for those of us who are not into sports that much, the triathlon is basically a contest where you swim, you cycle, and you run. So that's why it's a triathlon. And no worries, we're not going to do that. We're not going to get into heavy sports right now at the Sleeptrust. But it's a metaphor for the three things that we want to have a look at when we're talking about sleep. And no matter what we do or don't do in regards to sleep, it kind of always falls into one of these three categories. So we're talking about movement, moving our bodies as category number one. We're talking about nutrition, nurturing our bodies as number two. And number three is our mindset that we have to get right. And all of these are kind of interconnected with each other. So if we're lacking bad on one of these categories, this can have an impact on one or two of the other categories. So what we're going to do today is to walk through these three categories to give you an overview and the opportunity to see if one of these categories relates to you in regards to that you want to change something to the better. And in the next couple of weeks, we're going to dedicate one podcast to each category. So let's say you find the movement category to be one that you want to learn more in particular or want to get more inspiration, then you just tune in next week when we're going to talk about the movement. If you're about nurturing the nutrition side, then you're going to tune in 2 weeks. And of course, you're invited to listen to all of the categories because I believe that we're going to have something that you can pick out for your life to get inspired and to implement into your life in each of these categories, no matter how good you're sleeping at the moment. And if you're not already following us on Facebook or Instagram, check it out. And especially, I've personally loved Instagram. I think I said that the last couple of weeks. It's a new platform for me, but I think it's just so easy to handle, so convenient. So go there, you get reminded when the new podcast gets published. You're going to get a little teaser where you can kind of sneak in and see if that's something that's interesting for you. And you're going to get quotes, affirmations, all kinds of stuff that we post there that may or will hopefully be interesting for you. You'll also be able to drop me a comment, and I'm always happy to kind of see you getting active in the community. So check it out. You'll find it if you search for @Sleeptrust, and then just click the follow button and then you're in. But now let's just have a look at the three categories, see and get a better understanding why it's all about these three and how they interconnect. And then we're going to have a brief look at each category to get a better understanding why the gap between where we should work, on which level we should work, and where we're often actually working at nowadays is getting bigger and bigger. And we'll also kind of have a look at what we can do. But remember, today it's just going to be a brief overview, and we're going to have a look at the details in the next couple of weeks. So let's have a look how these three categories interconnect to each other. So moving our bodies is category number one. Category number two is the nurturing part, so nurturing our bodies. And category number three is the mindset. If we start with category number one, I'm just going to pick one simple example to keep it really easy for today. So if we move our bodies, which is category number one, this will reduce stress. It will have a positive impact of our bodies, of course, because it's good for our muscles, our heart, everything. But it will also reduce stress levels, which is good for our mindset. So it's good for category number 3. And it's also good for category number 2, because if we get our body in motion at the right times and the rest at the right times, our digestive system is just going to work better. And that will enable us to get the nutrition processed in our bodies in the way it's supposed to be. So it's going to have a positive impact on that. So moving on to category number 2, the nutrition. If we nurture our bodies, give our bodies what they need in the right amount, then this will definitely have an impact on our movement capabilities. If we got the right energy providers, then we're going to have more power, more energy, which is going to help us to build muscles faster, etc., etc. And if we do so, it will also have an impact on category number 3, the mindset, because certain hormones need certain nutrition to get created. And if we give our bodies what they need, then we'll be able to get them and feel better. So the easiest way, or one easy, let's not say easy, a simple process is tryptophan. You need tryptophan in your bodies, which bananas and other nutritions out there have, to create serotonin. And serotonin is the happiness hormone. So if you do not get enough tryptophan, then you will not have enough serotonin and you will be in a bad mood. And it's also eventually getting built into melatonin, which is the sleep hormone. So you'll also have problems falling asleep or getting the quality sleep that you need. So you get how the nutrition part impacts the two other ones. And moving on to category number 3, which is often, in my opinion, the undervalued one of these 3. I think mindset is actually the biggest and most important one of these 3 categories. The mindset is super powerful, and we as humanity are gifted to have it, so we should really take advantage of it and use it accordingly. To give you a little bit of a practical example of why I believe this to be so powerful, if you just imagine, and we're going to do both scenarios, if you just imagine that you are frightened, just in your mind, you might, be coming from a bad thought and you're frightened that something will happen, or just feeling bad because something that actually did happen, your body will act accordingly. So your heart rate may peak, stress hormones are going to be produced, and all of this happens not due to things that are really actually happening around us, but just to what your mind is creating. To bring it into the positive direction, if you imagine or tap into the feeling, the imagination of something that happened to you that was really nice. So somebody did something nice for you, or you just experienced something nice, and you tap in your imagination and just get into this colorful scenario again, then you will ultimately feel better and feel good. And this is also created only through our mind. So it will have a positive impact on our hormone state. It will have a positive impact on anything else that happens in our body. And this is just created in our mind. So our minds absolutely have a relationship to our bodies. And the same is true for the nutrition part too. It starts with things as, if you have stress hormones in your body created through your mind, then you will be hungry so, but you will want to eat different foods. You'll like to eat more sugary, carb kind of foods. And that's one impact. But also, if you have a bad hormone cocktail in your body, your digestive system will simply not work as good as it would if you were having kind of a calm, balanced state of your bodies created through your mind. Remember, we're talking about the mind here. So that's basically how the mind connects to our bodies and to the nutrition part. And this is kind of a brief overview how these categories all impact each other. And we really want to get a better understanding of each of these categories because, we're all humans. Nobody of us is perfect. We all have things where we say want to get better and should get better. That's what it's all about here on Earth, to grow personally, not in particular kind of comparing us with others, but growing from the inside out to just know that we are a better version of ourselves. And walking through these 3 categories in a little bit more depth over the next couple of weeks will certainly give you and me too, because I'm kind of always inspired when I create a new podcast. I always have a takeaway for myself too. Give us a little bit of inspiration, what we can do in each of these categories to improve our lives. And ultimately, and that's why we're all listening to this podcast or meeting in this podcast, ultimately to improve our sleep trust. With that, let's wrap up this week's episode of the Sleeptrust podcast. Talking about improving sleep is doing a triathlon over the categories body movement, body nutrition, and mindset. Each one of these categories has interconnections to both other categories, and we want to get a better understanding how this works and which categories we want to improve. In the next 3 weeks, we're going to dive into each of these categories in more detail. With that, we're going to bring this episode to a landing. I hope you enjoyed yourself and that you tune in next week when we're going to dive into body movement, our first category. Until then, have a superb sleep.
Hey there, and thanks for listening to the Sleeptrust podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you want to get further information on this podcast or material that will help you to gain back your sleep trust, please check out sleeptrust.eu. That's sleeptrust.eu, where you will get lots of information around sleep. And here comes some legal stuff. Everything on this podcast is my opinion only, so do not take it as an advice, as I am not a doctor, nor have I considered your personal situation. If you feel that you need medical advice, please consider getting an appointment at your doctor of trust. If you want to give me any kind of feedback on this podcast, feel free to email me at podcast@sleeptrust.eu. I hope you tune in again next week, and until then, have a good sleep.